Welcome to Dark Character Profiler. Take a deep dive into the background and personalities of villains from books, video games, manga, and comics. Psychological analysis of some of the most deviant and heinous characters of all time. Now, here's Fulcrum.
Welcome back, Dark Disciples, to the hallowed and veiled rites of Dark Character Profiler. The black candles flicker unsteadily, the sigils pulse with unholy life, and the echoes of the abyss answer our call. Step beyond the threshold, surrender the light, and join us as we summon forth the chronicles of a spirit consumed by darkness. The invocation begins.
Dark Character Profiler.
Your master, Qui-Gon Jinn. I gutted him while you stood helpless and watched. How did that make you feel, Obi-Wan?
Beneath the fire and fury of Darth Maul is a spirit hardened not merely by the dark side, but by years of hurt, abandonment, and festering fixation. Maul did not just survive his fall. He became something else entirely, an agent of vengeance. And when he finally faced Obi-Wan Kenobi once more, he made sure that he reminded him of the pain that started it all. Darth Maul first appeared in Star Wars Episode I, The Phantom Menace, portrayed by Ray Park and voiced by Peter Serafinowicz. He returned in Star Wars The Clone Wars with voice work by Sam Witwer from 2008 to 2013 and again in 2020 for the 7th season, and in Star Wars Rebels from 2016 to 2018. Maul also starred in Marvel Comics' Darth Maul series in 2017. Ray Park reprised his physical role in Solo, a Star Wars story, in 2018 with Witwer voicing Maul again. Witwer will also voice Maul in the upcoming animated series Maul, Shadow Lord, set for 2026. Darth Maul's species is Dathomirian Zabrak, and his affiliations include formerly the Sith Order, and later leader of the Shadow Collective and Crimson Dawn. Referral reason. Darth Maul is submitted for retrospective forensic and psychological evaluation following his death in his final duel against Obi-Wan Kenobi. The subject presented with pervasive emotional instability, violent ideation, and obsessive-compulsive focus on revenge. Following significant physical and psychological trauma, the subject exhibited persistent antisocial behaviors, an impaired sense of self, and marked paranoia. Interpersonal functioning was impaired by an inability to form secure or non-exploitative relationships. Background information. Darth Maul was stolen from his family on Dathomir as an infant by Darth Sidious, who betrays the Sith rule of two by keeping Maul in seclusion. He was subjected to harsh physical and psychological conditioning, forced to fight, suppress emotions, and ideological indoctrination. No known records show normal childhood bonding or development apart from Sith teachings. His psychological identity was intentionally shaped around obedience, aggression, and survival. His emotional development was frozen at a formative period, never given space to operate by empathy, autonomy, or self-relatedness. After his bisection and presumed death, Maul lived alone for more than a decade, constructing robotic legs from junk and falling into madness. He was also bound by obsession of the Jedi Knight Obi-Wan Kenobi, who was responsible for his quote-unquote death. Mental status examination. Appearance. Muscular and gaunt build. Ritualistic facial and body tattoos consistent with Zabrak cultural markings. Mechanical lower limbs. Typically dressed in black or red combat attire, symbolic of Sith allegiance. Facial expressions and postures are tense and guarded. Affect and mood. Affect is constricted, yet capable of sudden change to intense anger or manic elation. Mood is irritable and dysphoric most of the time, with paranoid undercurrents and chronic hostility. Displays momentary affective flattening when emotionally overwhelmed. Speech, deliberate, controlled, and intense. May flatten under emotional stress, but articulation remains. Speech pace is mostly slow and measured, but becomes faster in periods of agitation. Tone is typically threatening or sarcastic. Thought process, organized but rigid. Demonstrates goal-directed thinking in seeking revenge or manipulating others, but is tangential or persevering when discussing personal grievances, especially those against Obi-Wan Kenobi or Darth Sidious. Thought content often includes delusional presuppositions of betrayal and destiny. Perception. No evidence of auditory or visual hallucinations. Distortions of perception are likely, specifically in the misinterpretation of benign actions as threats or betrayals. Shows hypervigilance and a distorted sense of reality due to past trauma and Sith ideology. Personality profile. Openness to experience. Low to moderate. Narrow-minded and rigid, only thinking about revenge and Sith ideology. Conscientiousness. Elevated but maladaptive. Extremely disciplined and detail-oriented, driven by purpose and routine. Extroversion. Low to moderate. Strongly introverted, preferred silence and solitude to being engaged. Agreeableness. Very low. Cold, manipulative, and showed little compassion or trust towards others. Neuroticism. Very high. Emotionally unstable, preoccupied with anger, trauma, and obsessiveness. Comparison to historical figures. First, we have Gavrilo Princip. Like Maul, Princip was a young man, impressionable and indoctrinated with radical ideology and used as an instrument to incite further conflict. For example, the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand. Both were shaped by forces outside of their control and relegated to the periphery of history despite their impact. We also have Richard Kuklinski, also known as the Iceman. He was a hitman who displayed a compartmentalized emotional life and capacity for extreme violence without remorse. Maul also demonstrates compartmentalization, using soothing logic as a leader but committing atrocities. The last historical figure we have is Rasputin. Both were considered morally corrupted forces with a charismatic presence. As was Rasputin, Maul would practice spiritual manipulation but be unstable on a personal level and fixated on revenge upon perceived enemies of destiny. Before we proceed further into the shadow of today's episode, I want to take a moment to offer a whispered but sincere thank you. Cody, proposing that we explore Darth Maul opened the door into a character of tragedy, rage, and lost purpose. Without that spark, today's episode would not have existed, so thank you. And to you all who continue along this way with me, listeners, supporters, fellow travelers who peer beyond the surface, I see you. Your presence gives meaning to every word ever spoken here. This podcast was born in the dark corners of fiction, but your encouragement is what sparks the fire. Before we return to the subject of this episode, let's take a pause and examine the collective beat of our listeners. You vote every 2 weeks. You get to decide what disorder, what puzzle piece comes under the spotlight. And in doing that, a trend always ends up occurring, not just in what fascinates you, but in what unsettles you. So let's break down the results of our recent survey and see what your choices mean this time. Coming in strong at number 1, we have complex post-traumatic stress disorder. It seems that all of you are interested in the lingering effect of chronic trauma, the type that wounds but reorganizes the self. The type that creates resonances behind the closed doors even when the storm has passed. Next, we have antisocial personality disorder taking the silver medal. No shock to that either. There's bound to be a fascination with the cold-blooded, the reserved, the rule breakers who walk among us, hidden behind charisma or malice. And finally, we did have a fair amount of votes for other. This type of category always leaves behind a residue, undefinable, yet not forgotten. It keeps you reminded that there's something more out there beyond the expected list that still lingers in your mind. Something unspoken. Maybe it's a diagnosis we have yet to venture, or maybe it's something less defined. Either way, we're listening, and the unknown is most frequently where the darkest tales begin. And so, those were the results. A summary of what caught your eye this time around. Your choices guide us where to go, but now it is time to get down to business. Let us shift from the individual to the patterns. Let the final analysis begin.
Dark character profile.
The evidence against Maul includes tedious murders, including Jedi, civilians, and other competing syndicate leaders, political destabilization through control of criminal dynasties, terrorism and incitement of war during the Clone Wars, torture and psychological manipulation of subordinates, regicide through the murder of Death Watch leader Pre Vizsla, and abduction and coercion of force-sensitive individuals.
And now, the final analysis. But first, just a little house cleaning.
This podcast is for entertainment and educational purposes only. While we use the DSM-5 as a framework to provide psychological analyses of fictional characters, the discussions are not intended to diagnose, treat, or provide professional mental health advice. The interpretations shared are based on hypothetical scenarios and creative exploration and should not be applied to actual individuals or situations. For mental health concerns or diagnoses, please consult a licensed professional. Listener discretion is advised.
Dark character profile.
For our final analysis, our primary diagnoses include PTSD and borderline personality disorder. Starting with PTSD, we have Criterion A, which is trauma exposure. Maul suffered from a near-death bisection, prolonged physical and psychological suffering in solitude, betrayal at the hands of Sidious, and loss of his brother, Savage Opress. Criterion B, which is intrusion symptoms. Maul is preoccupied with abandonment trauma and with Kenobi.
Kenobi.
With intrusive recollections, affective flashbacks, and fantasies of retaliation. Criterion C, which is avoidance. Maul avoids confronting personal weakness or emotional vulnerability and instead clings to revenge as a defense mechanism. Criterion D, which is negative alterations in cognition and mood. Maul experiences persistent negative affect, such as hopelessness or anger, distorted views of self and others, detachment from others, and a constricted affect. Criterion E, which is arousal and reactivity. Maul experiences hypervigilance, impulsive aggression, sleep disturbances indicated during his feral period, and exaggerated startle response to provocation. With borderline personality disorder, we have frantic efforts to avoid abandonment. This is evident in Maul's clinging to Savage, Ezra Bridger, and his insistence on taking back his destiny. Unstable relationships. Maul idealizes, then rejects benefactors, for example, Ezra. Identity disturbance. Vacillates between Sith apprentice, warlord, and being a quote-unquote shadow of himself racked with existential crisis. Impulsivity. Maul experiences rageful blowouts, careless power plays, and self-sabotaging lightsaber duels. Affective instability. Maul's mood swings between cold calm, rage, and despair. Chronic feelings of emptiness. He has expressed repeatedly across the Clone Wars and Rebels that he has nothing.
Then you're a Sith.
The Sith took everything from me, ripped me from my mother's arms, murdered my brother, used me as a weapon, and then cast me aside, abandoned me. Once I had power, now I have nothing. Nothing.
I know how you feel.
Inappropriate expressions of intense anger. Maul habitually erupts into violence across emotionally threatening situations. Transient, stress-related paranoia or dissociation. This is implied throughout hallucinations and disorganized thoughts during an imminent collapse. For our secondary diagnoses, we have obsessive-compulsive personality disorder and antisocial personality disorder. With obsessive-compulsive personality disorder, the key features are preoccupation with control and perfectionism. This is reflected in the way Maul organizes crime syndicates and plots with military-like precision. Stubbornness and inflexibility. Maul will not abandon his vendetta even when it is his ruin. Over-devotion to work and productivity. Maul has no personal life or interests apart from power and revenge. And resistance to delegation. Maul maintains allies under control through fear and suspicion. Obsessive-compulsive personality disorder is a partially met diagnosis. While Maul illustrates some traits, emotional volatility and impulsiveness might conflict with the strict emotional control typical of classic OCPD, evidently making this a secondary feature. With antisocial personality disorder, this diagnosis is also secondary as it is more defined in his early years and intersects with Sith conditioning. Its key features are disregard for adhering to lawful conduct. Maul kills and lies without remorse. Deceitfulness. Manipulates people to achieve his desires. For example, the Mandalorians and Ezra Bridger. Impulsivity and failure to plan ahead. Maul makes reckless choices based on emotion, for example, confronting Sidious head-on. Irritability and aggressiveness. Maul exhibits regular outbursts of aggression. Lack of remorse. Except where personal loss is involved, remorse is rarely, if ever, shown to his victims. Note, genuine ASPD is complicated by his trauma history. Much of his antisocial behavior can be explained by PTSD and early grooming. Final impressions. Darth Maul was less a villain than a tool, one crafted by the Sith rather than born to decide. His sense of self had been shaped by abandonment, betrayal, and trauma more than ideology. He suffered from crushing rage, emotional volatility, and a shattered identity. His obsession with vengeance was a survival strategy, a way of coping with the pain of being discarded. In contrast to Vader and Palpatine, Maul did not seek power for domination. He sought it to fulfill the void left by loss and rejection. Each relationship he formed was driven by need. Savage, Ezra, the Shadow Collective, all collapsed under the strain of his desire. In the end, Maul was a tragic figure, not defeated by enemies, but by the emptiness inside him. His final words to Kenobi revealed the truth. He wasn't after power, he was after meaning.
Tell me, is it the chosen one?
He is.
He will avenge us.
And that's all for today's episode of Dark Character Profiler. But wait, don't go just yet. Mark your calendar. Next Tuesday, something new is coming. We'll be sitting down with John Vines, author of The World is Angry. It's an honest, raw interview, one that explores the psychology of his writing, the rage that fuels his characters, and the macabre truths that seep through the pages. If you've ever asked yourself, what kind of mind constructs a world that enraged, you won't want to miss this. Until then, stay curious and stay in the dark.
Thank you for listening to Dark Character Profiler with Fulcrum. Listen every other Tuesday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Podcasts. Humanity was not meant to live this way. Society is left to the mercy of murderers and cutthroats. Hear Paige Zaplin Dam's epic tale brought to life in an audiobook. For years, Slade had felt secure in the forest. I'm from simple, humble beginnings. I was raised in the Ironwood by an Ogress, an Anaral. He saw immediately that she was beyond a healer's aid. Even a skilled witch could not help her recover from losing so much blood. Mother? Slade thought he wanted revenge. Instead, he got redemption. A kingdom of ash and steam. The Ogress's Son. A dystopian neo-Dark Age fantasy. Narrated by Rich Fraser. Now available on iTunes and Audible. I promise you I will find whoever did this and avenge you, Mother.